Hi, welcome back to Her Shift, Surviving PMDD, Trauma Healing and Women's Wellness Stories. How is everyone going? How is everybody? It feels like it's been a long season, is that right? If you're into cyclical living like me. Oh, I've had a really interesting one. I'll talk more about that in a sec. But obviously, we're here to talk about today's episode, which is we're talking about partners, we are talking about family, we're talking about relationships with, well, for any of those of you that suffer from PMDD, depression, have poor mental health, are working through your trauma, in your healing journey. I always talk about it from a point of view of myself and us, and how we're going through it. And it was suggested to me by one of you lovely lot that we should address relationships and what it's like for other people that we're in relationships with, family members, loved ones, friends. A bit of a shift in perspective, if you like. And I absolutely agree. I always feel a little bit tentative talking about things from such a different perspective because, yes, I do have experience of people with poor mental health. And I have been obviously sat alongside people while they've been through trauma and some really hard times. But I always feel like I'm for some reason not in a place to talk about it when actually this is one of the hardest things that we do deal with. It's like the knock-on effect it has on others in our life, how that makes us feel. But equally, if we're in a good dynamic and if we foster good relationships here and we educate and we share and we put that message out there, then we're going to heal. We're going to heal better, quicker. Um, the stigma is going to be lost, but it's messy and it's complicated, and I get that. And it's a very hot, juicy subject. Now, I am thinking about in the future having, get this, a different perspective in the form of a male partner going to come on to Her Shift, not mine. um, he has set up a support group for partners because his wife was diagnosed with PMDD, and he has actually set up a support group for partners of women. So it's for men, and I was yeah, a little bit shook up when I first spoke to him because it wasn't what I was expecting. Because he was so knowledgeable and his experience was so valid and so justified. And when I've talked about setting up the PMDD support hub in the Northeast before, it is with this guy, Aaron. And I would love to have Aaron on here. I don't know why I'm hiding his name. Aaron. I would love to have him on here. So I've actually just received a message saying, yes, he would like to do it and he's going to send me through some dates. So that will be coming up. And I think that would be really, really good for us, won't it? A man on Her Shift? Who'd have thunk? There we go. Anyway, so looking at my notes, and I just started really dumping this stuff down, going, oh, it made me think about this. It maybe took me back to the time of this. It's like, I think, okay, so I'm talking about relationships. So shall we talk about our romantic partners in this instance? Obviously, of course, we have friends, we have family, we have kids involved in this, but maybe they get their own episodes because it is so vast. So I think I'm going to be addressing here relationship in terms of, husbands, wives, partners. Yeah, and it's complicated. I think that for me personally, it added to that feeling of I've got to hide this part of myself. Whether it was, obviously I thought I had depression for a very long time. I had poor mental health. And it was actually turned out to be PMDD. But I could say as well that as well as having PMDD, I would say I had very poor mental health and was working through a lot of trauma. So the two do go hand in hand. Now, certainly when I was married, and it's in me due to my attachment style. So I would say I'm on the side of anxiously attached. Or maybe a bit disorganized. If you want to know more about attachment styles, please look it up. It's absolutely fascinating. Nobody is one thing, of course. We don't do labels, but you will tend to lean more to lean more to a certain style. Not always, but as a rule, women tend to be more anxious, men tend to be more avoidant. That's just simply because we're more likely to talk about things, talk about our feelings, be more vulnerable, but it's not always the case. I do tend to lean to more towards being anxious. I lost my mother figure in my life when I was 12. My dad died when I was 15. Yes, the girl's got issues. There is obviously there's some abandonment trauma going on there. Um, but yeah, I would say I am anxious, but to the point where I don't really let it be known. Like I would be very embarrassed version of anyone knowing that I can get very anxious. So I don't let that be known. But also in a heartbeat, I can go to very avoidant, as in I can completely switch. And I think it's almost at that point where it's like I'm hurting so much, I will just say, get away from me. I will shut off. I will not want to talk, I will run away almost. It's a very extreme reaction. Now, it doesn't last very long with me, but I think it's almost my body going, whatever you're dealing with is too painful to face head on, and it brings out that avoidant protection in me. Anyway, yes, so there's something to consider here when working with, your partner is what your attachment styles are. And it made me think that obviously there's a lot of women who are in very unhappy relationships, and they don't know whether that's because they are in general an unhappy relationship because of their mental health, because of the trauma, because of the PMDD. Is it a combination of that and the fact that they're not with the right person? Is it a fact maybe that you've both changed so much and grown and you're no longer right for each other? Is it a fact that actually if you, I say the word healed, but if if your mental health was to improve, if you were to reduce your PMDD symptoms, would your relationship get instantly better? Do you worry if that happened that there would be too much damage done beforehand? There's a lot of factors. And I think the fact that I stayed in my marriage so long was because I didn't have that level of clarity. For one thing, I didn't know who I was. Now, that is a lot to do with, obviously, I had a lot of narcissistic abuse, not from my marriage. So I really lacked a sense of identity. So I didn't really know who I was. And if you don't know who you are, you don't know what you like, you don't know what you want. And, I could say, I'm really, really unhappy, but I wouldn't be able to tell you why I was so unhappy. I know that things he did, he said, or the things that he didn't do made me more unhappy, but I didn't know if that was due to me, my mental state. Sometimes I would think, and I actually believe this might be true, that our mental health, certainly PMDD symptoms, can be a warning sign that not all is well, things are not right. So it's like we can be in a very unhappy situation, but we don't know if we've got any right to complain. A lot of women who have poor mental health and suffer from PMDD really struggle with that guilt, that shame. They look around and go, I've got so much, or I'm so lucky just to have a partner. I'm so lucky to have a husband. It doesn't really matter if, certain boxes aren't being ticked. That was certainly the case for me. And I curated a very, very positive shit show, if I'm quite honest. I never went as far as an Instagram family or anything like that, but I used to really put a good show out there. I think I even curated his image, if I'm quite honest, to the point where if there was a side that I perhaps wouldn't want anyone to see, not only of myself, of us or him, I would do everything I could to hide that. Or manage it, certainly in public. When I was married, there was certainly a time when, and I've talked about this before, when I had the Marina coil fitted. Now, I know that's not always positive for everybody, but because my body was so severely lacking in progesterone, and because my estrogen levels were so high, it had an almost immediate effect. And it really soothed me and really calmed me down. And a lot of the symptoms went away overnight. And I would say that I had two good beige, I'll call them beige years, where a lot of the worst symptoms were removed. They were stripped back, and I was able to have a plateau, a level of being okay. Now, it then made me realise after these 2 years that there wasn't anything underneath all that. I was still unhappy. I just wasn't at the level of suffering when every month my symptoms would go through the roof. So it was almost like going, what is your base level of happiness? And after a couple of years, well, probably 18 months, I'd say it was, I started to realise that my base level of happiness was pretty shit. It's just the fact that I'd been comparing that. So you imagine when you get your period and you feel like things are better and things are blacking out, it feels so good. If I could feel like this all the time, I'd be happy. Well, that's what happened to me. Take away like the luteal extreme symptoms, the extreme depression, the brain fog, the physical symptoms, the flu, all that, right? Especially like the overwhelm, the anger, the frustration, the depression. Imagine removing that and then going, oh, this is okay. I can live like this. And then slowly over time realizing that your base level isn't that great. It's just that your level of unhappiness was so extreme, you would take that beige unhappiness any day. And it's not good. That was a real moment for me when I started to wake up to a lot of things, when I realised that I didn't really have a purpose, that I had nothing driving me, that I was numb, that I was devoid, that my base level was shockingly shit, and that I had absolutely nothing in common with my husband. We were not on the same page. We didn't have the same views, we didn't have the same interests, we didn't have the same levels of intelligence, it was just, wow. It had been a case of, I would rather be in a familiar situation, which is, and society suggests that, as women, we should be married, or we should be in a relationship, we should be living together, we should have children. That means that's a box ticked. And if you can present that, then the world's going to think you're okay. And I can confidently look back now and go, I was married for the sake of being married. It was what I was supposed to do. It's what society has expected. And to me, it kind of said, see, I'm not doing too badly. If someone wants to be with me and I'm in a stage of my life where I can be married and have children, have a house, I'm not doing too badly. Yeah, my mental health's a bit up and down at times, but look at me, look. I used to say, I can't be that weird. I can't be that crazy if I can hold down a house and a marriage. Again, base levels, it's bad, isn't it? I look around now and there seems to be a real common push, and I don't know if anyone else has seen it, where women that have been, it seems to be over the age of 40, where women are actively choosing to be single because they don't, the benefits, the disadvantages are completely outweighing any benefits of being with somebody. Because the thing is, women can be financially independent now, they can support themselves, they've had to learn to cope, they've had to, anyone who has lived with PMDD and anyone who has had poor mental health and depression, you've proved to yourself over that time you really don't need anybody. You don't know how to ask for help, and you really don't need a man. You certainly don't need a partner. So unless that person is going to offer you something which is an ultimate icing on your cake, which is going to be, what is the point? What is the point? It's almost like, especially when your bandwidth is so low anyway, and certainly once you've had children, you're like, it's almost like saying, show me what you got. What can you bring to me? Because as right now, there isn't much that I can't do. There isn't much I can't do myself. Look what I've lived through. Look what I've gone through. I was thinking that through all that time, that myself and many others are in survival mode. We have to be. And sometimes I'm really appreciative that I have that mode in me. What it's got me through, how it's kept me going. Yeah, it's great. But does it feel natural to me? No, it feels like I'm swimming upstream, walking through mud. It's not natural to me. I step into my masculine, and I've been there for years and years and years. And the only time I start to feel a little bit more myself and start to break through the cracks and feel a little bit more of who I am is when someone comes along, anyone, and starts to take that load off me. And by that, doing things for me, supporting me, acts of service. It kind of just straight away feels like the load is being shifted. And it then made me realize that not that would be part of my healing. That would be a huge part. Not if it could be done. So in my current relationship with Mr. Lobster, obviously things are very different. And I would say both of us are shaped from our previous experience. Now, everyone's going to be shaped for who they are by their past, by past relationships, by their upbringing. And I have to say that I wanted to look very shiny and happy and new. I didn't want him to see any bad side to me. I had so much shame I was carrying. In my head, I'd made so many poor decisions, and if there was any time I was unsure of something, or I lacked an ability to do something, or I messed up, I did not want him to know. I wanted to put out this view of very strong, very independent, holding it together, as in, if you're with me, you don't need to worry about me at all. And it's made me realize that if there's one thing that a relationship needs, it's actually for both sides, but certainly in my case, for me to be really vulnerable. And that was something that was knocked out of me as a kid. Being vulnerable is not being safe, right? If we can be really vulnerable with our partners, if we can, I don't mean be the victim, I don't mean, have be reactive, just put, everything out there. But I mean, it's like going, if you're genuinely feeling something, if you're really struggling with something, if you're crying, if you're being emotional, if you're having a crazy moment, what would happen, do you think, if they saw that side of you? And I know it's terrifying, especially if you've had to deal with abandonment and loss, especially if you're doing everything you can to uphold this image of strong and stable and independent. But I know that over the years, as I've gradually let him more in, as I've gradually shown real sides to myself in real time, and that's not to say I found him up when I'm really struggling and go, you need to see what I'm like right now. I don't. It's just happened on the off chance. Like, he's seen me at my absolute worst. And you know what happened? He didn't run away. So that was my biggest fear. Now you could say, well, if they leave you, if they abandon you when you're like that, then you're your best shot of them. And I get that, but you know full well. Imagine saying that to someone who's anxiously attached, has PMDD, feels like every month they have to reset the world, they have to make things right, they have to clear up the damage. It's that constant feeling of, I've got to carry this shameful secret, I've got to pretend to be someone else, because if I don't, people will leave me, my partner will leave me, my children will hate me. So I've got to hide it, I can't be myself. And then if I do show any vulnerability, if I do show any real side to me, if I do have a meltdown, I then have to do everything I can in terms of damage control. It's like working for a PMDD company and going, right, damage control, clear this up, make a statement. That's sometimes how it would feel for me. Now, not only was it being vulnerable and showing my real side, which might actually be like, you know what, I haven't got a clue what I'm doing right now. I'm really struggling right now. I don't want to be here right now. I feel so low right now. That should be the base level. And the most important thing that I've learned is, after being vulnerable, is then communication. And I'm going to encourage anybody to write a list of saying, when I am suffering, when I am struggling, when things feel utterly rock bottom, what do I need? What do I need in that moment for myself? What do I need to be, what does my space need to be like? And what can my partner do for me in that moment? Because here's the thing, if you don't know, how the hell are they going to know? And I've written a few things down. So my biggest need, and I think this is probably the same for all women, is I need to feel safe, right? So how do you help me? You can't make something, but help me feel safe, okay? Now, obviously, feeling safe, feeling loved, feeling supported, that's got to come from the inside out. Again, really hard for someone who's suffering, but I have worked it out. And for me, It's almost like I'm like some sort of Marvel character, and I'm obviously giving off this venom and this get away from me energy. I'm like, it's like wrath and it's around me, and I'm so, on edge, and I'm overwhelmed and I'm sensitive, and it feels like my skin is so raw. And unbelievably, what I need in that moment is for someone to be brave enough to come closer, as in see me like that, sit with me like that. And then I've actually written this down. I need to be held very, very tightly. As in someone to say, I'm not as afraid to poke the tiger. I'm not afraid to hold you like this. You don't scare me. I love you. It's okay. And that, as crazy as it seems, is actually all I need in that moment, because it's almost like my body is going, see how I am? Get away from me. You won't want anything to do with me. See? And then in the past, when people would, like, quite literally run away, or they'll say, I thought you needed space. I'm going to put it out there. I don't ever need space. I sometimes need quietness. I sometimes need to switch my brain off. I sometimes need to be sat in one chair while someone sits in another. But do I need like space, as in someone to no, I don't. I don't need space. Because in that, I need, like I said, I need to be held. I need to feel okay. I need to feel seen. That side of me needs to be understood. And I understand that takes a very brave person, and in my case, a very brave man. But once he knew that actually that's all I need, I'm scared and I'm frustrated and I don't know what I'm feeling, that massively helped. I was terrified of telling him that. I also thought it sounded pretty crazy. Imagine going, oh, you know that when I'm having an absolute meltdown and I'm really angry and I'm really upset, and you probably think that I need space. I actually don't. The thing is, you can put it out there, you can tell someone that, and then you can only see how they react. Now, in my case as well, with my anxious attachment, which is absolutely at its peak during my Hell Week. And even then I do try to hide it. So it's just in me that I always think of worst case scenario. I always think that someone is going to leave, I'm going to lose something. So it might be, someone might lose respect for me. They might physically abandon me. They might leave the house and then be hurt in a car accident. I'm always thinking all the time, like, everyone is going to one day die. You can see how my past factors in here, right? But abandonment, loss, people are going to leave me, and that's something I have to try and control. That is always in the back of my thoughts. I don't talk about this a lot because there was a lot of shame there. And now I'm very understanding. Actually, it would be complete sense for me to think that way because of the people that I've lost, especially as a child. But yeah, so when I have been, particularly open with somebody, very vulnerable, told them a lot of stuff, if I then sense that they are backing away or taking space, or I don't hear from them, I panic. My brain jumps to a whole new level of, oh my God, this could be happening. Now, I don't tell them that. I never verbalize this. I never I don't message or I don't phone, or when I see them, I go, oh, by the way, I thought this had happened to you. I don't say that, but that's what my brain does. And when I'm in Hell Week, that anxious side of me gets so bad sometimes with the worst case thoughts that it actually goes, this is so crazy. It stops being anxious and it goes into a whole new level of avoidant, which then makes me think that's why I've got disorganized attachment. So by that, it could be if I reach absolute peak, as in, you've really hurt me, I feel abandoned, etc., etc., etc. I'll then go, I'm done. I never want to see you again. Get away from me. Certainly as a teenager, I ended quite a few relationships in that moment. And I think it was because the level of pain from the anxiety in that moment was so extreme, my body would then shut down and almost repel and go, get away from me. You are causing this effect in me. So therefore, I do not want to see you. I do not want you in my life. I don't want you to factor into this. You're going to leave me one day anyway, or something's going to happen to you, or you're going to die. So therefore, fuck off. Get away from me now. I feel like I've been very honest just there, and I've revealed a very real side of me, but I'm being truthful. And if anyone can relate, then I can see my voice is shaking a bit. I'm like, oh, I've been so vulnerable. But if anyone can relate to that, that's sometimes when I talk about the intrusive thoughts in my head, that is how I can react. Interestingly though, because I don't put this out there and because I don't tell people, I've never actually phoned up someone, a friend or a partner in that moment when I've been reactive. If I know that I'm being reactive, I don't talk. It's almost like I have that level of awareness that I know what I'm actually doing. So my lobster does know this about me. I don't think he's ever actually witnessed it because obviously I hide it, but I have told him, like, look, this is sometimes where my mind goes. This is what I stress about. This is what I worry about. I know that you're not the same. You think very differently to me. But even having that conversation massively helps us because then he can go, well, that is where she's at. And it's very likely that she's thinking that way because of the PMDD. That is why it's so important for obviously communication, telling each other where we're at, and him knowing where you are in your cycle. So like I said before, he does have the Stardust app, so he can see where I'm at. I said earlier, didn't I was going to mention that. So I am having very short cycles right now. I am definitely going through perimenopause, and I know that can happen, that they start to either get closer together and then they start to get further apart, your periods, before they actually stop. My last 2 cycles, I think I had 22 days and then 23 days. So, and just to say as well, so when I had those short cycles, which are effectively just over 3 weeks, I still had 2 weeks of luteal. How is that fair? How is that fair? Anyway, but because he knows that and because he can check in with this app, it's so, so helpful. And he'll like make very considered, I'd say, guesses, analysis of me at that time, going, okay, she's probably feeling like this for a reason. Yes, I might have pissed her off. However, this will be aggravated by this or this or this. If he sees me absolutely fuming when I'm in a period of just maybe between follicular and ovulation, he knows he's done something wrong because that is not my hormones at that point. He knows, like, oh, she is all good there. She's got utter clarity. She is like, she's on fire with work. Okay, what have I done? But it does really give a really good indicator to why we might be behaving in a certain way at a certain time. So like I said, I need to feel safe. I need to be held. Doesn't necessarily mean I have to be spoken to. That could be the space that I need. I need to be held. I need to be reassured. I like to be looked after as if I'm like I would be if I was sick. Because when you think about it, you're not very well. And by that, I just mean, look, I don't need to be fed soup. But if things are done for me, so if he brings me food, if the kids help with the housework a bit more, if somebody brings me a drink in bed, if someone runs me a bath, oh my God, that is that sort of love language and that reassurance. It says to me, you are safe, it's okay, we see you, you're not well, you matter. This goes such a long way. Because I know that when we're going through this stuff, when we're so hyper independent, we will not accept help, and a lot of us don't even know how to ask for help. Another thing I do is that, and this depends how your partner does take in knowledge. Mine does like to read and he does like to listen to things, so it might be an educational podcast, or an interesting article or blog on PMDD or women's mental health or hormones. I know there's this big movement for cyclical living, and like I said, younger guys like teaching each other about women's hormones, women's cycles. Thank you, you're doing great work there. But how can we help that? Well, we're the ones that we need to put that knowledge out there. We need to explain about women's moods, women's hormones, women's cycles, but mainly our own, because again, we don't want it to be generic. Everyone's got their own story and everyone's got their own way of needing support, and that looks different for everybody. Like I said, I need to have someone who's brave enough to pull the tiger. There'll be some of you out there like, actually, you do not want anyone near you. And you do need space, and you would prefer it if your partner moved out during that time. And that is fine. But you need to communicate that. You need to put that across. And I'm going to say that all this communication preferably needs to happen not during luteal. That would be good. I think you can see why I would suggest that, yeah? All these means, all these things that we can do within our relationship is a way of asking for help. Even if it's you want them to literally fuck off, if that helps you, that is help, right? Any form of needing help is not weakness. Please, please remember that. How you communicate it does matter. Now, that's why, again, I think it's so important that we have these hubs, these support groups, these forums. Now, not all of them are great, as we know. Like, some of them can be a little bit toxic or maybe patronizing. But once you find a good one and once you find your space, I think that can be so important to, like, if you're going through something and, especially what's to do with your partner, how do you communicate with your partner when you think they're the problem? That's when it's a good time to go into one of these community spaces, go in one of these forums. And this is where I'm going to drop mine. I do have a Facebook group called Battlefield Red, the Hormone Wars. It's completely free. It's only been started just over a week. I would love you to check it out. It is in the summary, it is in the show notes. Battlefield Red, the Hormone Wars. And I do have a private podcast associated with that called Battlefield Red Radio. Yeah? So that is where we can just come together, where it's raw, it's real. We can discuss everything. We can discuss our partners. We can discuss our hormones. We can discuss our bodily functions and our bodily fluids. Whatever you want to talk about. Okay, it's not lavender, it's not a pastel, and it's not all niceties, and you are completely allowed to swear or not. It is up to you. So Battlefield Red, the Hormone Wars, I would love to see you in it. As I said, I am definitely going to look at getting Aaron on the podcast to talk about it from a partner's point of view, through someone who has lived with the experience of his wife having PMDD at quite a young age as well, and what that was like for him, and what the healing has been like for his wife, but also how that has impacted their relationship. And some of the I would really love to know what the outcome was for him, and what things, what tips, what tricks, what advice he would give that, moving forward. And I just think it would be so helpful for us as women as well to hear from a man's point of view in this. As much as I work with women and I work on this podcast, I am interested in men. I do want to know what goes on in their minds. God, it is absolutely fascinating. They're very interesting creatures, as we know. So what we're taking from this, from my own experience, we need to be real, we need to be vulnerable, we need to share how we're feeling. We also need to have that awareness of might be better times than others when to communicate that. We need to get this down. What do we need? What do we need to feel? What would help us right now? Would that be better if someone did give us space? Do we need to be held? What would make us feel safe? What would make us feel seen? What would validate this very real experience for us? If you're anything like me, until now you might not have even known what you need. So firstly, I would say get that out there. Communicate, communicate, communicate. What do you need? What do they need? What do they want to know? Do they have questions? Let them know how they can support you. Now, I screenshot this just before I did the episode. It wasn't related to her shift as such, but it did make me go, Now, obviously, I say a lot of us have really fantastic intuition, but sometimes our mental health and actually our PMDD is completely quashed that, and we doubt ourselves. And I just saw this headline, I'm just going to read it. Your consciousness can jump through time, meaning gut feelings, intuition, are memories from the future. And I just thought, that is so true, isn't it? I don't know about you, but it's such a weird feeling when we feel that feeling in our tummy or in our chest. Yeah, that is our intuition. That is our intuition at play. And what if it's a memory from the future? What if that person who you're with, who's causing that effect in your body in that moment, so it's a memory from the future? Just saying. Just maybe for now. Obviously, I don't want to end this episode going, well, you might be with the wrong person, and if your partner can't support you and can't communicate with you and can't show you vulnerability, well, you know what to do. No, there's loads and loads and loads and infinite reasons why, things might not be good, or, there might be red flags, there might be intuitions, you might both be going through something, you might not be communicating, you might not be on the same page. It could just be the hormones. It could be his hormones too. But as I said, without that communication, without putting it out there, you'll never know. And if you don't know, you can't therefore make decisions that are going to affect your future so greatly. That is a whole nother episode, isn't it? I'm just thinking back to when people go, when did you decide to get out of your marriage? And obviously it's not like an overnight decision. And for most women, it is something that you come to over time. But this is interesting. So I joined a course, and it was a money mindset course. It was an international one. It's a very popular course. It's called Money Boot Camp, and it's with Denise Duffield Thomas. And now she wrote Get Rich, Lucky Bitch. And it's all about mindset, and, obviously it's meant to factor about money, but it basically unearths all these blocks and all these ideas and views we have about ourselves and how we see the world. So, it's put across it's about money, but actually isn't. It's about how we view ourselves and how we view others. And what I noticed, which was so interesting, that people would, the whole point of this group was that we would make little upgrades. So it'd be like, oh, I spent something on myself, or I treated myself to this, or I decided to have a nice coffee today and I didn't feel guilty. Little subliminal upgrades in our life, right? The most common upgrade, or the most common thing that happened, that within literally 6 months of women joining this money boot camp, is they would get separated and they would get divorced. Like, it was just, take what you will from that. But anyway, that was just really, really interesting. And it was almost suddenly with that clarity and that awareness and being around other women and in a supportive environment. Interesting. Anyway, again, like a whole new topic, a whole new subject there, and certainly a whole new episode. We could talk more about that, let me know. As I mentioned previously, I do have Battlefield Red, the Hormone Wars. I would love to see you over there. Please look me up. I don't want to be speaking crickets to anybody over there. If you would like to come on the podcast, if you have questions, if you would like to message me about anything, if you have suggestions that are burning inside of you and that would help others, and please, please, please message me. Let me know. Her shift is really about support, and I need to know how I can do that to the best of my ability, and I can't do that without you, and I can't do it without your feedback. It's so, so helpful. As I said, my messages are always open, or you can even WhatsApp me. I love a voice note. Please, anytime, honestly. What else to say? Oh, there is also the free PMDD survival kit. And there's a link there in the show notes. It's completely free. Download it, see what you think. It's just got some tips, advice, affirmations, things to do, things that have helped me. And it's all in a very pretty PDF. So please see what you think, and all feedback will be greatly received. I say that with my fingers crossed. So again, I really do feel for anyone out there who's going through the hormone wars, whose mental health isn't great. And if you're struggling, it's hard enough to keep yourself going without worrying about the effects you're having on your partners, your family, etc. Please know that you are not alone. You are doing so well. You are stronger than you think. Please keep going. And as always, sending all my love.